Hello everyone, this is Hairy Nick. How is everyone out there going? Yes, I am here, and you're lucky to be here too after all the foolish things you have done. Yes, I realise I've been a little MIA recently. We'll talk a bit more about that towards the end of the video. Obviously, most of you that clicked on this are keen to talk about some new X-Wing content, which of course we'll be getting to very soon. But yes, needless to say, it's great to be back and great to be seeing all of you as well. What we're going to be doing today is taking a look at this new PAX, the Pride of Mandalore, talking a bit about it and just basically going through all of it, because I didn't talk a lot about the spoilers when they were coming out. So what I'll do is I will go through each of the cards in faction order. So we'll talk first of all about all of the Republic cards and the overall effect they're going to be having on that faction, and sort of do it in, group by group, and that way we can sort of talk about its impact on the faction one by one. Obviously a lot of these cards go on multiple factions, so that's going to have sort of different effects on them, so it's worth sort of covering a few of these things twice over for that reason. So first of all, on the Republic, we don't actually have any new pilots, but we do have a bunch of crew and gunner cards. In the gunner slot, we have Ursa Rain, and we have 6 crew as well that can be fielded on the Republic. In Bogotan Cries, Prime Minister Olmac, Bogotan Cries, Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan, and Satine Cries. And I've sort of ordered these least to most hype, in my personal, humble opinion. Just to note as well, we do have points for these, but I'm not going to talk about them so much in this video. We've just fundamentally changed the way points work in X-Wing, and it's still a bit up in the air on, how we value things, especially like upgrade cards like these, because of the way upgrade card points no longer interact with pilot card points. So we'll just talk about these from purely a design point of view. Starting off with Ursa Rain in the gunner slot, after you acquire a lock on an enemy ship beyond range 2, if there are no friendly units at range 0 to 1 of the locked unit, gain a calculate token. This card sort of underwhelms me. It's the kind of thing that really depends on positioning your ships and your opponent's ships, so there's a somewhat of a loss of agency on your part, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's going to feel great when you're just, shelling your opponent at range 3 with like missiles and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. But yeah, I just feel like this effect is fairly average overall, doesn't really excite me all that much. If you can kind of cheese abilities that allow you to take locks beyond range 3, I can't think of any off the top of my head that work with either the Republic or Separatists. Maybe there's something here, but I don't know. This is kind of meh to me. Moving on to Botica Cries, Republic only crew. After a friendly ship in your forward 180 at range 1 to 2 becomes the defender, you may transfer 1 green token to it. While a friendly ship in your forward 180 at range 1 to 2 defends, if you obstruct the attack, the defender rolls 1 additional defense die. And just on that second paragraph, that's kind of weird when you think about it, because you've got to be obstructing the attack when your friendly ship is in front of your ship. So you've either got to be sort of facing them and your opponent is on the other side, or you're sort of moving forward in formation, your opponent comes around the back and flanks you. That's kind of weird, but I guess it's additional upside on what I think is already a kind of decent other ability, which is the ability to just pass off green tokens. That seems really, really good and consistent. Yeah, it is position dependent, but it's entirely on your own ship's position. Currently on the Republic, there's no way to pass off evade tokens with this, because no ship that can take evade is able to also take a crew member. So that's something to look out for in the future. For the time being, we can use the Latte ship to pass off some reinforced tokens, or anything else like an Arc 170 or whatever can pass off focus tokens, which honestly by itself is already pretty good. You don't really need to be, finding weird green tokens to be passing off. Just giving off focus tokens is great. Now, Prime Minister Olmac, this is an interesting one because it's a double-sided card. The front face that you set up with reads, after a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 reveals a white maneuver, if it has no green tokens, it may gain a stress token to gain a calculate token. And at the end phase, if you have 2 or more stress tokens, you can flip it over. And Olmac Maul's puppet reads, after a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 fully executes a red maneuver, that ship may perform a calculate or focus action on its action bar even while stressed. So just looking at the front half of this, it kind of underwhelms me because you have to do a white maneuver, and before you even move, you stress to focus. You stress to calculate, which is even worse. The problem is, generally when you're doing a white maneuver, and obviously this isn't all situations, you can just take a focus or calculate action. This is helpful in situations where your ship's going to bump into another ship and you're going to lose an action, or fly over an asteroid, or something like that. And that's cool, I guess, but for the cost of a stress, it seems like a pretty steep cost. What is interesting about this is the backside, where you're able to force out green tokens even through stress. You've just got to get to that stage first. You can have very stressful builds that kind of help you with this. Cybernetic enhancements, whatever that illicit card is, which allows you to sort of cheese out extra stress tokens and sort of get more action through that. It kind of works in tandem with this quite nicely. That might be good on like a fire spray or anything else that's got all these slots and is aggressive and can sort of take the extra points. It seems interesting. I don't think this is going to be an ultimately consistent or, overly meta card, but it's a cool effect nonetheless. Now we have Bogotan Cries, and this is actually one of 2 Bogotan crew that we get in this pack. Specifically, this one's for Republican Separatists, and it reads, while you perform an attack, if you are at range 0 to 1 of the defender, you may reroll 1 attack die. And basically, this is a very light version of the Scum Boba Fett pilot card, and it's a great effect. There's just no two ways about this. It's the kind of thing that you can sort of slap into a build, assuming you have those points, those weird, what do they call the points now? The upgrade points, the separate thing. Now that no longer sort of interacts with your ship points, this is like just a great value card to have in almost any build. Obviously, yeah, it's better in more aggressive builds, but it's just great. It's going to give you some more attack power. There's no two ways about it. That's just fantastic. Also, doesn't specifically say got to be in your front arc or anything, so yeah, it's going to work with ships that can shoot backwards and forwards like a Arc 170, anything turreted like a Latte, or yeah, seems good. Seems really, really good, and it's only going to be as good on the Separatists as well. Moving over to Ahsoka Tano. This is one of our Force-using characters. So this also grants us a recurring Force charge. After you fully execute a maneuver, you may spend 1 Force to choose 1 friendly ship in your rear 180 at range 1 to 2. If you do, that ship may perform a red focus action even while stressed. So we've got kind of Ahsoka's version of her Jedi Starfighter ability on this, which is really, really good. Also worth noting, and we'll talk more about this a bit later in the video, it is available on the Scum Faction, which is new, but it's just a really good, solid ability. The ability to sort of like work through stress tokens and give out focus is good. It's a very Jedi kind of thing, especially like a Jedi Commander thing, where we're sort of just helping you a bit more with dice consistency, not in the form of rerolls, in the form of focus, so, it's not infallible, but it's super, super useful. Just bear in mind, it's a friendly ship at range 1 to 2, not 0 to 2, so you can't use this ability on the ship that Ahsoka is on. Not that I think that's a huge deal, just it's worth remembering. Moving on to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, we have a pilot ability just pretty much stapled onto a crew card, which in this case is great. 1 recurring Force charge after a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 spends a focus or evade token. You may spend a Force. If you do, that ship gains 1 focus token. This is just straight up great. You can probably use this in the same way that a lot of the meta lists use the Obi-Wan ETA pilot, where you can just take focus tokens and just sort of recur them on Obi-Wan and get some really nice dice consistency. It works in your friendly ships as well. When we're talking about Jedi, we're talking about a flaw of already giving your ship a Force token, which is great to begin with, but this kind of dice consistency on your friendly ships is going to be really, really powerful. So yeah, big thumbs up to this. Awesome, powerful card. Should be a lot of fun to play with. Lastly, we have Sabine Cries. 2 recurring charges. At the start of the engagement phase, you may spend 2 charges. If you do, each friendly ship may choose to gain 1 deplete token and focus token, or gain 1 disarm token and evade token. And just to clarify, unless there's going to be a different ruling in this, the way that's worded leads me to understand that each ship can choose either one or the other. You don't have to have all of your ships doing one or the other. You can sort of pick and choose between your ships. This is kind of like a Princess Leia type ability, the crew card from the Rebellion, which sort of gives you these alpha strike moments where every other turn, or, once every few turns, depending on how many charges recur, you can do this really, really powerful ability. And having the choice between both of these is fantastic. Getting the ability specifically for a disarm and evade is great, because if your ship's not going to be shooting, you can help it dodge. And sort of like the softer ability of going for a deplete and a focus is also awesome, because you can still get your shot. It's a little bit weaker, but then you have a focus token, which means you can sort of defend a bit better, or even potentially use that on attack. If after that point the situation dictates, it's actually just better to use it on attack. So it's kind of like hedging your bets with that, but the other one being a sort of a more dedicated, I'm just defending, is really, really cool. It feels like the kind of ability you can just pop off when you're sort of... your positioning on one particular round isn't great. You just want a bit of insurance. This is the kind of time to use that kind of thing. And the fact that it triggers once every other turn, or potentially up to once every other turn, is just really, really good. Just bear in mind, the more you sort of wait for the better time to use this kind of card, the less frequently you're going to be able to use it in a game. So for newer players playing around with this card, I encourage you not to hold off on it for too long. Kind of pop it off as early as you can, so long as it's somewhat useful in a round, and then sort of, get yourself back into a position where you can use it over and over again. There's a bit of an ebb and flow to this, like a rhythm you have to play with. Try to sort of anticipate your next turn. So if you think you're going to be in a situation where it'd be better the next turn, probably don't use it this turn, if that makes any sense. Okay, let's move over to the Separatist Faction now, and we do have the ability to field both of Ursa Wren and Bogotan Cries, the cards we just spoke about on this faction as well. Not really much to talk about here. I don't see Ursa Rain being a much better card on this faction, and Bogotan, again, I'm pretty jazzed with this ability. I think it's going to be good on this faction as well. Maybe on a Sith Infiltrator, that kind of stuff. Seems pretty powerful. But let's talk about some things we haven't yet revealed. In Previzler, Savage Oppress, and Tal Merrick, all in the crew slots. Previzler. While you perform a coordinate action, you may choose a friendly crew remote instead of another friendly ship. Instead of performing an action, that remote relocates forward using the 1 hard turn or 2 straight template. And it also adds coordinate as a wide action to the ship as well. This is very, very interesting. I have to admit, I'm not really a big remote player myself. I'm sure Justin would like to take a look at this, because, he loves all that janky stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Being on the Separatists, obviously, there's a lot of sort of remotes that are a bit more meta-worthy, but it is worth pointing out that very soon we're going to have the Gauntlet Fighter released in the coming months, and that's going to have basically these Mandalorians floating around in space and all that kind of stuff. Perhaps this is more tailored towards those kinds of thing. I don't really have a lot to say about this right now. Adding sort of remote movement could be a really cool thing. It's a bit of an unknown quantity. Obviously, we've always had remotes moving at a steady pace, and always the 1 move per turn kind of thing. It's a bit of, uncharted territory in terms of what this might do to the game, but I think it's a cool effect to have on, and at the very least, adding white coordinate is fantastic, and honestly, the card might see play just because of that. Moving on to Savage Oppress, adds a Force token, because of course Savage is a Force user. After a friendly ship in your forward arc at range 1 to 2 gains a Stress or Strain token, you may spend a Force. If you do, that ship gains a Focus token. A friendly ship in your forward arc at range 1 to 2 gains a Strain or Stress. So obviously the most common way this is going to happen is just a friendly ship taking a red maneuver, and it's going to happen from time to time. I mean, obviously there are certain effects your opponent might do to cause your ships to take strain or stress. I really wouldn't rely on that happening to be reasonable if we're going to look at the consistency of this card, but it's interesting. Being able to pass off focus tokens is great. The fact that it doesn't work on the ship that Savage is on, kind of, I don't know. Savage is a really cool character. It's one of those times where FFG designs a card and it has a cool character in the art, and it just sort of feels meh. And this is one of those times. I mean, it's a cool effect. It's certainly powerful in the right situation. It just feels okay to me. I don't know. If you guys in the comment section think I'm way off base here, let me know. Let's talk about Tal Merrick, though. This is one of these condition-y crew card thingamajigs, so lots of words to talk about here. Setup. Before placing forces, choose one enemy ship and assign the false friend condition to it. If the false friend condition is not assigned to an enemy ship, assign it to an enemy ship in your forward arc at range 0 to 2 as an action. In other words, if that ship blows up, you can then give it to another enemy ship. Sorry, another enemy ship that you make your friend. It's not a friendly ship. That's going to confuse me a lot, which is cool. It's not the kind of condition that sort of jumps between ships automatically. False Friend reads, during the system phase, if an enemy ship with the Tal Merrick upgrade is at range 0 to 2, or an enemy remote is at range 0 to 2, flip your dial face up. Action. Gain a deplete token and 1 stress token to discard this condition. Oh, okay, cool. So it's not the only way to get rid of this condition. It's kind of weird how you have to keep using actions to reassign it if your opponent can just use an action to get rid of it. I'm just rereading this. Action, gain a deplete and a stress token to discard the condition. That seems a bit weak now that I think about it, because they could just do that in round 1 and yeah, great. They didn't really have much downside. Yeah, that feels a bit average, to be honest. So if that's the case, and that's really what keeps happening to this card, it means you're basically got to assign it manually over and over again. I will say it is clear, especially moving forward with AMG's design of the game, that being able to look at your opponent's dials looks like it's going to be a more and more powerful effect. So I guess that balances it out somehow. It feels like there's too many moving pieces here. Yeah, you can run a remote heavy list, and I guess if you've got the crew slot free, like I strongly urge people not to build around this. It feels too janky. But maybe in a remote heavy list that was already kind of, meta-ish worthy, you just chuck this in. Looking at your opponent's dials is pretty good, don't get me wrong. It's just, yeah, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, and I'm just not a big fan of that kind of stuff, realistically. Okay, let's move over to the Rebellion, because we actually have some pilot cards to talk about as well. We actually have a pre-existing ship in the game getting a representation on a different faction. We have, on the Rebellion, access to the Fang Fighter now, which is kind of cool, and it makes perfect sense because, Fenrail and Clan Wren do help the Rebellion during the Rebel show, and we now have that representation in cards, which is kind of cool, and I like the design here. We've utilised the frame, but we're giving them more Rebel-style abilities. So on this platform, we have Fenrail, Botica Venge, Dirk Ulodin, we're going to say that. Let's go lowest to highest. So fielding a maximum of 2 of the Clan Wren Volunteer at Initiative 3, while you perform an attack at range 1, if the speed of your revealed maneuver matches that of a friendly ship at range 1, you may re-roll 1 attack die. Great offensive card. I can kind of see why it's a maximum of 2, because if you were able to just field 4 of these, you could just do these perfect formation maneuvers and just hammer your opponents, which is kind of cool to think about. You can kind of still do that if you just pair it with other Fang fighters. It'd be cool to see how this balances out in terms of shipbuilding wise. We'll have a look at that when we actually look at some lists with these kind of things. Yeah, just really cool. Just maybe even just fielding 2 of these, fly them side by side, make them move in formation, and just hammer your opponents with extra dice. The only thing is, you do have to have a friendly ship doing the same maneuver and be at range 1 of your opponent. It's a couple of hoops to jump through. I just kind of get the impression with an effect like this, if you make it pop off maybe even just twice a game, it's probably going to be okay. Yeah, I like this kind of thing. Let's move over to Dirk Ulodin. After you fully execute a red maneuver or perform a red action, you may acquire a lock on an enemy ship in your forward arc at range 1. Super, super aggressive. But I gotta say, I love this. It's a little bit awkward being at range 3, so you can do a Talon roll, line up a perfect shot, and target lock them, and they just fly away, which is a bit of a feel-bad moment. It's annoying being able to do this kind of thing, and the likelihood is your opponent will be able to fly away. Obviously great against low initiative ships. Flying against initiative 1 and 2s, you're basically, this becomes like the world's best ace, but it's just kind of really average against other aces, that's the only thing. High risk, high reward, very Fang fightery, very aggressive. I like it. Botica Venge, Initiative 4. After another friendly ship defends, if you are not depleted, you may perform a bonus primary attack against the attacker. If you do, after performing the attack, gain a deplete token. This is great. Bonus attacks are always good. I don't have a lot to say. That sounds great. And yeah, after another friendly ship defends. It doesn't work with Botica. You can't get shot and then shoot back immediately. It's not like that kind of effect. But it just seems like another good ability. Like, just fly this alongside other Fang fighters. Maybe pair this with the Clan Wren volunteers. And you can just sort of shell off extra attacks. I mean, it's one of these fundamental things in X-Wing, especially in the dogfighting format. If you just shoot your opponent more times than they shoot you, a lot of the time you're just going to win games. So extra attacks is legitimately a very powerful effect, and this doesn't seem like a very difficult hoop to jump through. Yeah, it might change the way your opponent flies, but honestly, if they're going to fly around an effect like this, and choose not to shoot your friendly ships, that's good. Making your opponent not shoot you is also a very good effect, so puts your opponent between a rock and a hard place at that point. Very, very cool card. And moving over to Fenrail, and this is probably the most rebel-y rebel of all these pilots, which is weird because he previously only had been on the Scum Faction. Before a friendly ship at range 1 to 2 engages, if there is an enemy ship in its forward arc at range 1, that friendly ship may remove 1 non-lock red token. So this is really cool. It really plays into the sort of the ethos of the Fang fighters, but you can make it work alongside other aces on the Rebellion. So it can work alongside A-Wings, and that's just really friggin' cool. It works great alongside these other Fang fighters, don't get me wrong, but the fact that we can, like, pair it up with Harrison Dula on the A-Wing just seems really, really cool. We've got some more Initiative 6s on the Rebellion. This seems like a good, powerful one, so we can sort of start to build more ace lists. And so long as it's done in a way that fits the ethos of the faction, we're not just like making like Imperial aces on the Rebellion, which this does in my opinion. I think it's just great that we're able to have more options for the faction. So I really dig the design. I think it's cool. I think all of these sort of play into the way the Fang Fighter wants to play. Some of these I wish I could just play on the Scum Faction, but that's alright. We got some other cards anyway. And moving over to the upgrade cards for the Rebellion, we have Ursa Rain, Tristan Wren, Sabine Ren, and Fen Rail and Bogotan Cries, all as crew slots. Let's talk about the Wren family first. First of all, Ursa Wren actually looking okay on this faction. You can maintain up to 2 locks. Each lock must be on a different object. After a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is locked, you may acquire a lock on an enemy ship. This is quite cool. I like this a lot. If it was just that first ability where you can maintain multiple locks, but you've got no sort of extra action economy to get those locks, it's okay, but you've got to take extra actions, and it's only for the potential choice of being able to shoot 2 different targets that you have a target lock on, which is good, but not great. Sort of target locking more and more things has diminishing returns the more you do it. The fact that you get the option to sort of just cheese them out if your opponent starts locking your ships is just frankly great. Even that effect by itself might be good even if you couldn't maintain extra locks, but with it, I like it a lot. Very powerful in kind of Alpha Strike lists if you want to fire missiles and have more choices, that's great. But even if you're not, just having extra target locks seems really, really good. Not much to say, I quite like this. Probably going to be better on ships that are able to sort of utilize that choice by, having a wider scope, maybe large ships with turrets, that kind of stuff, where they're actually able to shoot lots of different objects in different directions, maybe even on like the Falcon or something like that. This could be pretty cool. But yes, apart from that, obviously Alpha Strike List is going to be more than happy with an effect like that. Speaking of which, Tristan Wren, very useful on those Alpha Strike lists, as a recurring charge, and while a friendly unit at range 0 to 3 performs a missile attack, you may spend 1 charge. If you do, the attacker may change 1 hit to a crit, so right off the bat, really good alongside Ursa Rain if you're going to do those kind of Alpha Strike lists and get a bit of a Mandalorian Wren theme going on. It works on the ship that Tristan's on, so anything with a torpedo, missile, and the crew slot as well gets a bit more of a benefit out of this, which could be good, but even just flying it alongside other ships that use it, like alongside a bunch of Y-Wings with torpedoes, or even X-Wings if you want to go for that kind of thing. Just seems like a good solid card. I don't think you really have to heavily build around an effect like this, but even just chucking on a couple of missiles here and there on your list, I feel like this is going to be just a good, potent effect. Sabine Ren's an interesting one. Sabine is actually an epic-specific card. That's what that diamond symbol means. It is one of your epic points that you have to use when building an epic list. And Sabine reads, before placing forces, assign the Trials of the Darksaber condition to yourself. And while you perform a coordinate action, you may coordinate one additional friendly ship. Sabine also gains a red coordinate, which by itself is very cool. Having said that, the Trials of the Darksaber reads, while you perform an attack, at attack range 0 to 2, you may spend one critical result. If you do, if the defending ship's player has more scored points than you, they lose one scored point. Place that score on this card. After you defend, if you are destroyed by an enemy ship at attack range 0 to 2, assign Trials of the Darksaber condition to an attacker and all points to this card. At the end of the game, the ship scores all the points on this card. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really an epic player. I'm not really the best person to talk to about this kind of stuff. I'm just going to say that right off the bat here. But alternate point scoring is always a cool thing. We see a lot of it in Star Wars Legion, and it's kind of fun to see here. So look, if you are more of an epic player than me, which frankly is probably going to be most of you, tell me in the comments, what is this like? Is that really good, being able to score points in different ways? Certainly seems fun. I like the sounds of it. Moving over to Fen Rail. This also can be fielded on the Scum Faction, and before a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 engages, if the revealed maneuver is speed 1 or higher, and there's an enemy ship in its forward arc at range 1, that friendly ship may remove one non-lock red token. So this is interesting. It does specify 1 or higher, so you can't use it off the back of full stops. It's, of course, very similar to the pilot ability on Fenrail. Didn't have to clarify it on that card because it obviously can't do full stops. Difference being that Fenrail, the crew, can actually use this ability on the ship that he's on, which is, it seems better. It's very rare that we get crew abilities better than pilot abilities, but I guess here we are. Yeah, it just rewards you and the rest of your ships for flying aggressively. That seems really cool. Chuck this in like a Jankyard build, away you go. It doesn't have to work specifically with Initiative 6s. Obviously, it will, it's positioning based. It will tend to work better with higher initiative ships. We can do it on more mid-range ships. Just having a preliminary look at like list building now, it looks like the more sort of 4-5 plus ship builds are going to be a bit more potent because of the new way the scores work out. And this is the kind of thing that really might push that kind of stuff over the edge. So it's going to be interesting to see this one, whether this works better on the Initiative 6 or on this. But again, it's going to depend on the way the meta shifts with this new point scoring system. Also, Bogotan Cries. This is a different Bogotan, specifically for Rebel or Scum this time. After you perform an attack, if the defender was destroyed, each friendly ship at range 0 to 2 may remove one red or orange token. It's interesting because it's got a lot of upside. You can remove a lot of stress or whatever all at once, and that's really, really cool. But I wouldn't sort of intentionally stress your ships in order to potentially get rid of them with this card. It seems like a recipe for disaster, because you might not blow up your opponent's ship and you're in an awkward spot. You need a lot of things to align with this card to make it great. It can be great, but I think it's a bit of a magical Christmas land scenario. So I just, any new players watching this, maybe just be cautious with this card. I don't think it's going to be like the bomb-tastic, like, I remove 5 stress tokens every single time. In actual fact, it's great that it removes the stress off of Bo-Katan's ship. That alone can be quite powerful. So, honestly, that's my advice. Rely on that consistently happening. If you've got a nice aggressive ship that is capable of destroying your opponent's ships, it's going to work better against swarms, but, even if you chuck it on, something powerful like a Falcon or Boba Fett or something like that, yeah, cool, nice. Moving over to the Empire faction, and we're going to take a little break from all this Mandalorian stuff for a second. I mean, this is from the show The Mandalorian, but they're not Mandalorian themselves. We do have a few just regular old TIE fighter pilots. in the form of Moff Gideon and the Isb Jingles, which is nice to see. Obviously, we have a situation where in canon we suddenly have a random TIE fighter pilot appear in one of these Star Wars shows, and we've already had X releases for the TIE fighter. This is why one of these packs is pretty cool. We're able to get these pilots into the game, in one or two ofs, and not worry about having to have a whole TIE fighter release. Starting off with the Isb Jingles, this is a max 2 of Initiative 4. Before you engage, you may choose one enemy ship in your forward arc at range 0 to 1. If you do, that ship gains 1 deplete or strain token of your choice, unless it chooses to remove a green token. And giving your opponent that level of agency is typically not great in a lot of tabletop games, but obviously X-Wing included. Giving them a deplete or strain, I like that you get to choose whether it's the deplete or strain. And the good thing about that is you can choose one that's more effective, and your opponent losing a green token is almost always good. Just bear in mind, if they outbid you with like an initiative 5 or 6, they can just shoot you first, spend their focus token, and then they don't have to worry about using their green token. It might just cause your opponent to use their focus tokens on offense and then go, well, the Jingles is just going to get rid of this anyway, so I'll just spend it on offense. And that's really not a whole heap of downside. So, I don't know, it's powerful, both of these effects are powerful, but it's almost like there's this secret third option that your opponent can sometimes do just to sort of nullify the effect of this card. I think ultimately when you have this many powerful things, it's cool, but I feel like your opponent just has too much agency to work around this. And frankly, cheap semi-generic TIE fighter pilots are not in short supply, so I don't really see this one making a particular impact on the meta. I think, the TIE fighter is already doing okay with what it's got. What I am more interested in, though, is Moff Gideon, with his cool Outlander TIE that does the thing where the wings do this, and it's really cool, and everyone goes, oh, I didn't know it could do that. Oh my god, how cool is Star Wars? Initiative 4, while an enemy ship at range 1 to 3 defends, before attack dice are rolled, you may spend a charge and choose a friendly ship at range 0 to 1 of the defender. If you do, the defense dice cannot be modified during this attack, and the chosen friendly ship gains 1 strain token. Okay, this is a lot to take in. So in other words, while one of your friendly ships is shooting an enemy ship, if you have one of your enemy ships, you have one of your friendly ships near that ship, you can stop them from modifying dice, which is cool. Can it be the same ship? I've just got to read this again. Yeah, so the ship that's shooting that ship can be the same one that you're nominating at range 0 to 1, which means that ship can be firing at range 1 and nullify your opponent's green dice. Yeah, it seems really cool. I'm getting a little confused. It has a lot of enemy-friendly ships, and my brain is slightly melting reading this card, but I think if I've understood this correctly, this is great. And great cards tend to be great. Anyway, this kind of ultra-aggressive effect is really, really cool. It's capped out at 2 a turn because of those 2 charges. Probably a good idea. If you fly us alongside a TIE Swarm and do it 5 times a turn, your opponent's just going to feel terrible and never play X-Wing again, which is not the goal of X-Wing cards. We want more people to be playing this game. Flying alongside aces seems like an interesting strategy. Depending on how we can balance that out with the new points. It just seems really, really powerful. You've just got to fly aggressively to really capitalize on it. And I like that. TIE Swarms flying aggressively, sort of capitalizing off the way you position your ships, seems like a good thing to add into the game, and I like it. And TIE Swarms, I want to see more TIE Swarms. I want this to actually be a viable thing again. It sort of never really took off that much in 2nd edition. This seems like a really cool effect. Maybe this right here is going to be the card that makes TIE Swarms meta viable again. I don't know. I say that way too often, and frankly, I'm often wrong, so, whatever. I'm just a YouTuber, what do I know? Let's talk about the 3 upgrade cards for the Imperial. We have Teba Saxon on the gunner slot, and in the crew slots we have Captain Hark and Gar Saxon. So Teba Saxon has 2 recurring charges after you perform an attack at range 1 to 2 that hits. If the defender has no face-up damage cards, you may spend 1 or more of your charges. For each of your charges you spend, the defender gains a strain token. If the defender has no face-up damage cards, it's just not letting you sort of dump more negative effects on your opponent if they've already got face-up damage cards, which are admittedly quite powerful and could already be giving your opponent strain tokens. It's just kind of weird. I mean, I like it. It's a powerful effect. Just attacks that hit, just dump on some strain tokens. It seems okay. It just... those face-up damage cards clause, that seems odd. I don't know really what to make of this. I'm going to say it's probably kind of good, but not great. Captain Hark, 2 charges, non-recurring. After you fully execute a red maneuver, if you're not focused, you may spend a charge to gain a focus token. That's simple, and I love it. Just AMG, FFG, more simple design like this. Nothing that makes my head hurt like the last 2 cards we discussed, okay? I'm watching you. Yeah, that's great. It almost feels like more of a Scum effect, kind of like cybernetic enhancements or something like that. Not much to say. It's awesome. Chuck it on a decimator, do a full stop and get a focus token. Same with a Lambda class shuttle or a TIE Reaper. Yeah, I like these kinds of effects. That seems like a real decent thing to be able to do. It'd be really good on like an ace, but obviously we're not talking about that, so... You know, Imperial ships that can really take advantage of this don't tend to have a crew slot, but it's a really cool, powerful effect, and it's the kind of thing where in the future, as more Imperial ships come out with more crew slots, it's good. It's very good. Moving on to Gar Saxon. While a friendly unit at range 1 to 3 at initiative 4 or lower performs an attack against a defender you have locked, that's a sentence, the attacker may change 1 focus result to a hit result. So a friendly unit at range 1 to 3 with initiative 4 or lower, so, you know, generics, that kind of stuff, maybe like lower end TIE fighters, that kind of thing, performs an attack against a defender you have locked. The attacker may change 1 focus to a hit result. Yeah, good alongside swarms. That could be pretty cool. Yeah, alright. So you lock something, send all your TIE fighters against it, and they just sort of upgrade all their focus tokens for free. I mean... TIE fighters tend to take focus actions anyway, but it means they can also do it after they do a red maneuver. It gives a bit more agency, a bit more freedom to maybe spend the focus token on other things, save it for other attacks. Yeah. While a friendly unit at range 1 to 3 with initiative 4 or lower performs an attack, there's no cap on this. It's not once per turn. That seems like it's really, really powerful, actually, now the more I think of it. Lots of versatility, lots of power. It seems good, and it's, you know, it's Gar Saxon. It's this iconic character. I think that's a cool approach. Oh, also worth mentioning before we move on, that can be fielded alongside Tristan Wren, which seems really good if you have like lower initiative alpha striking and just, yeah, that's a lot of firepower. Seems really good. Seems like the kind of fun thing you're going to build around and just get annoyed because it doesn't work, but that kind of thing excites me. I dig that a lot. That's really cool. And now, finally, we move on to the best faction in all of X-Wing, the Scum Faction. We just got the 1 pilot, 2 copies of the Mandalorian Royal Guard, max 2 of, initiative 4, while a friendly non-small ship defends. If you're in the attack arc, you may gain 1 deplete and 1 strain token. If you do, the defender may change 1 result to an evade result. This is a trait that seems really, really solid, being able to actually get that kind of insurance. Yes, that can be a real cost, but for an evade result, for denying your opponent hits, that seems very, very powerful. When a friendly non-small ship defends. So this is something that can go alongside your Gauntlet Fighter. Obviously, that's the kind of flavour this card's going for, but any other non-small ship. Kind of a shame that it doesn't work on themselves. That would have been quite good, but they've already got like Concordia face-off, so yeah, that seems okay. And you know, initiative 4, it's going to be something that we can field of in multiples quite easily. I mean, like all of these sort of 2-of cards, they sort of go well together, so that's cool to see. Not the most hype thing I'm here to talk about, though. I'm here to talk about these crew cards, because there's one card in particular, and I'll save it till last, that I'm really, really jazzed about. First of all, let's just quickly recap the other cards that we've already revealed that can be fielded on Scum. Previzler, yeah, cool, no worries. We don't really worry about about remotes that much, but adds coordinate. That seems pretty cool. Savage Oppress, yeah, that's, again, pretty much the same as I said in the Separatist Faction. It's okay in terms of what it can do. Scum do tend to run extra stressy stuff, and you can, like, Boba Fett do K-turns or use, like, cybernetic enhancements and do that kind of stuff, and then they can gain extra focus tokens. Seems very cool. Again, it adds a force token, so the floor is pretty good on this, but it's, again, just okay. Prime Minister Olmac, I feel like, is going to be a more powerful thing on the Scum Faction because we have ships, like fire sprays that are just more capable of utilizing extra stressful maneuvers and using those, and again using cybernetic enhancements. I keep going on about this card, but the fact that we have so many things that are capitalizing off stress just makes a lot of sense alongside this. Ahsoka Tano, this is a weird one. I don't think Ahsoka should be on the Scum Faction from a flavor point of view. Really should be Republic or Rebel, not Scum. Having said all that, the ability does feel quite Scum, and I think I may have even said this back when she was originally revealed on the Jedi Starfighter. Just being able to push through focus tokens even when your ships get stressed is very, very powerful, and frankly, another Force user on the Scum Faction, I'm not going to complain about that. Fenrail, fantastic. Great to see that this effect is also on the Scum Faction. Sort of rewards you and your friendly ships for flying aggressively. I don't know whether this is going to be better on the Rebel or the Scum Faction. I love the fact, as I said, that it can be flown alongside A-Wings on the Rebel Faction. On the Scum Faction, maybe just, pushing out Fang Fighters, that kind of stuff. Maybe putting it on fire sprays if you want to do that, or there's a few possibilities here which seem really, really solid. And Bogotan Cries, again, aggressive builds, works basically on both the factions it's able to be fielded on, so not much more to say there. Seems like an okay effect on both factions. Moving on to these new cards though, in the crew slot we have Rook Cast, Gar Saxon, and Maul. Let's start with Rook Cast. This adds a red target lock. After you perform a red action, which could be the red target lock of course, you gain a strain token. While you perform an attack, if you're strained, you may change one of your blank or focus results to a hit result. Very, very Scum, very sort of very risk-reward style of card. The odds of rolling a blank or a focus on every attack is fairly high, especially if you're attacking with more dice. It's interesting, it adds a red target lock, but it's the kind of thing where you might just put this on a ship that already has a white target lock, and then you have the choice. You have the power to make the decision to either use one or the other, and in those situations you can say, okay, do I want a stress and a strain token, or do I just want nothing and have probably a weaker attack? Good. Versatility, always good in X-Wing, and I like this a lot. Just bear in mind, if you take this card and you always take white target locks, you're not using the card that you spent points on, and that feels kind of bad. Yeah, it's a lot of risk and reward, but it's a lot of power, so I think that's well worth it in a lot of situations. Moving on to Gar Saxon, it goes on a large or huge ship this time, so it can still be fielded in the regular game, just got to be on a large ship like a Falcon or a YV-666 or something like that. While you perform a target lock action, you can only choose objects in your forward or rear arc. While you perform a primary attack, if the defender's in your forward or rear arc, you may remove one orange or red token from the defender to roll one additional die to a maximum of 4. So bear in mind, if this is on a ship that already has like a 3 dice primary and you're attacking at range 1, it does nothing, which kind of feels bad. It can't go on a fire spray because a fire spray is a medium ship. I know I keep talking about fire spray, just let me please. It's just... It keeps me sane. It's my favourite ship. So yeah, I don't know. It goes on the Falcon. That seems all right. Yeah, I just can't think of too many great options for this right now. Anyway, rolling additional dice is cool, especially on the Falcon, who is frankly starved for dice and needs to sort of jump through hoops to get those extra dice. But yeah, I think this is the kind of thing which might need some more options. It's an obviously powerful effect, but it sort of needs to be worked a bit to, sort of get a bit more success. Potentially really good on the Gauntlet Fighter that's coming out, if indeed it's able to go on that ship. So we'll see what happens then. I might bring that back up when we have a reveal for all of that. Now, last great card I want to talk about, Maul. This is the thing I'm most excited for. Again, I see simple design, I just smile. This is something I want to see more of in the game. I don't think we have to get more and more complex as we're adding more stuff to the game. We have 7 factions. There's plenty of good simple designs out there just waiting to be made. 2 crew slots, adds an illicit slot, 1 recurring force, adds purple coordinate. Just adds a few stats. There's no complicated risk-reward system. It's just good and powerful. Goes on your YV666, goes on the Falcon. Will go on anything else in the future that has 2 crew slots, potentially the Gauntlet Fighter. I imagine the Gauntlet Fighter will have 2 crew slots. And it's just straight up great. There's just not much to say about it. It's a solid card. You can take 2 illicits. You can take 2 illicit cards with this. You have Force, you have Coordinate. Obviously, it'll be a bit more beneficial in the list with more ships because then you have more options for that Coordinate. It's still pretty potent in a 2-ship build, though, I will say. I don't think having fewer ships to coordinate is really a huge detriment to this card. But just straight up, I love the design. I love that we're seeing different characters with multiple cards on, some on different factions, some on the same faction now. It's good. It's design that, frankly, I think should have been done a long time ago. Like, even back in first edition, we could have had, the same character appearing on factions multiple times. And finally, it's happening in the game, and I'm just really glad to see it. And yeah, I just want to play it. I just want to list build with this card. It just looks so good. Just look at it. Look at it. Look at him. He doesn't care. He's just gonna wreck stuff. And I like it. I like it a lot. Last but not least, we do have a couple of generic upgrade cards in this pack, specifically for Mandalorians, in Clan Training and Beskar Reinforced Plating. Clan Training has a charge before you engage if you're not focused and there is an enemy ship in your forward arc at range 1. You may spend a charge to perform a red action. After you perform an attack, if the defender is destroyed, recover 1 charge. Again, this is just sort of sharing that Fang-ish fighter ability on other stuff. It seems awesome. It seems really, really good. The fact that we can start to put that on other stuff. We can't put this on an A-Wing. Oh, that'd be really cool. I dig that a lot. But just chucking it on Fenrail, all those Fang fighters for the Rebellion now. Fenrail on the Scum Faction as well seems really, really solid. Just good capitalizing on aggressive abilities. I remember there was a time in 1.0 back in the day where there was a wave of ships that suddenly came out that really capitalized off an aggressive playstyle, and it was a very healthy thing for the game because it meant we were getting a lot more results and a lot less durdling in the game. I really like this kind of design, and apart from anything else, it's a flavor match because it's about Mandalorians. It's taking that fundamental Fang fighter design and sort of spreading it across factions. Very much dig this card. Also, Beskar Reinforced Plating, 2 charges. While you defend, if the attacker is in your forward arc, before you would be dealt a face-up damage card, you may spend a charge to deal it face down instead, or 2 to discard it instead. This is a modification as well for your Mandalorian ships. Which is really, really good. I mean, again, it's a defensive ability that works similarly to the talent we just spoke about. So, obviously really good on Fang fighters. They don't have shields, so the likelihood of them being dealt a face-up damage card just incidentally does go up. It's just a good bit of defense, and the kind of extra few points that you'd be glad to spend just because it works in a lot of lists and it works in a lot of different playstyles. So again, both of these really, really good. Both encouraging aggressive playstyles, encouraging a game state that gets progressed. And with that, that's all of the new stuff that we've gotten in this pack. Just before we wrap this video up, I just want to talk about, what's been going on in general. Yes, obviously I've been quite MIA of recent. Towards the end of last year, we had another major lockdown in Victoria. And honestly, it was just hugely detrimental to my mental health. There's no 2 ways about it. It sucked. I'm not complaining about having to go through the lockdown. I'm very much in favour of making sure we do the right things to get us through this pandemic. I'm not criticising that. But nevertheless, it was a tough thing to go through, especially here in Victoria. We've been through a lot this pandemic, and it sucked, frankly. Out of all of Australia, we've been in lockdown the longest and the hardest. We've had one of the most robust COVID responses in the world. And again, I don't criticise our need to do that. It just does come with a bit of a toll. And despite the fact that I was home a lot more, I'm not the kind of person that can just chuck on a camera and make YouTube videos if I don't feel mentally up to it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just going to be realistic there. But things are a lot better now, obviously. We're sort of moving forward. We're sort of seem to be moving to the tail end of this sort of horrible time in all of our lives. And that's been a positive thing. It also gave me a lot of time to reflect on what I do here on the channel, and I do feel like I was suffering from a lot of burnout. Making a lot of talking head content, just talking theoretically about a game a lot. I want to be sort of doing more practical stuff. Just sitting here with the camera pointing at my face, talking blah, 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 blah. I'm Hairy Nick. See ya. I want to actually be a bit more creative with the way I do filmmaking. As a result, I've decided to do something that I wanted to do ever since I made this channel and sort of step outside the realms of talking about, gameplay and that kind of stuff and actually talking about the hobby side of this game. And not just this game, but like also Legion and just sort of model building in general. It's something I have a passion for. So as a result, that's what I'm going to be doing a lot more of as well, in conjunction with these X-Wing videos. I'm not just going to stop doing this and do that instead. It's very, very exciting. I've got a few really interesting builds coming up. When we do get these new X-Wing ships, as in the Razor Crest and the Gauntlet, I will be doing repainting videos on those. Like, I have to. Like, this card art for the Night Brother and this generic Razor Crest just look too cool for me not to do. It's something I have a lot of passion for, like just going through planning on how to do this kind of stuff. It's something that AMG do as well, and it's really cool to see the new X-Wing company do this kind of stuff and actually talk more about the hobby side of things. And hopefully my enthusiasm for that kind of stuff can sort of encourage you to sort of, take on that kind of stuff and maybe play something like Legion that you've been a bit worried about because of the hobby side of things. You just want to be able to buy things in a box and play it. It's an awesome part of the game. It's an awesome part of a lot of games, and I encourage people that are interested in getting into the hobby building, painting aspect of everything to have a look at it. It's a lot of fun, seriously, and hopefully my enthusiasm can rub off in a bit in that regard. But with all of that said, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing a Hangar Bay video detailing some of this new points stuff going on. We're going to do some patron-only lists. So if you're interested in joining the Patreon and getting involved with that, links for all that down in the description. The middle tier gets you access to the Discord where you can submit lists for that. And we usually make sure we do a few patron lists every time we do a Hangar Bay video, which means if you're part of that, you're obviously part of a much smaller pool of people. So it increases the odds of you being featured in one of those videos. So yeah, get involved with that. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate it, especially when I've had these long periods of not making videos. It seriously means a lot that you guys are still there supporting me. Even if it's just $1 a month. I'm serious. If you've just considered it, doing $1 a month is massive. It's seriously massive. If everyone subbed to my channel gave me $1 a month, I'd be quitting my job and doing this full time. That's how big that is. So I just want to let you know that it's really appreciated, and all of those who watch, comment, all that kind of stuff. It's really cool to have you all here, and I'm very much grateful for it. In the meantime, I'll catch you all in the next video.